Yeah, I'm Paul Burgess, and I'm a professor here at Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience, and I lead the Executive Functions and Metacognition group. There isn't anything that isn't exciting about it. Um, it's a hybrid science that's appeared, really. It didn't exist a very short period of time ago. And many different people have different views of what cognitive neuroscience is. So for some, it's mainly shorthand for talking about functional neuroimaging. It isn't for me, and I think for a lot of people here, it's a kind of bucket term for a whole lot of disciplines which all have the single aim of finding out how the brain enables cognition, and therefore enables you to do everything you want to do in everyday life. So and it covers so many different levels then. You've got the anatomical level, the physiological level, the information processing level of explanation. Then, talk about the symptoms and the phenomena of mental life that we all experience, and trying to join those things up together and understand the whole thing. It's just so exciting. It's the breadth of it which is really attractive. So you're trying to understand everything at all levels. It's also a huge challenge, but it makes it very difficult. And no one person can make major contributions to every one of it. You rely on your colleagues to be able to do that. But I mean, that's what makes it exciting. It's the constant evolution and the fact that you've got lots of different disciplines working together. Well, hugely, right through from education and well, even politics, and there's not an area where it doesn't. But that should be reasonably obvious, I would have thought. But I mean, my own point of view, I suppose I think very carefully about practical medical applications for what I'm doing. I started my career in rehabilitation, neurological rehabilitation, and with psychiatric patients and with autism and children as well. So it set an agenda that was really quite trying to solve practical issues of understanding a condition and then therefore working out how you treat it. You can't treat something unless you understand what it is. These are very complicated things. So for me, at least, the end point is more than, it's very nice to have a philosophical view of knowledge for its own sake. But for me, the agenda is always mainly set by these very serious problems you're trying to solve, very practical problems of how to improve people's lives and so creating techniques, for instance, for diagnosis of the better. So that's obviously something I've been lucky enough to be able to do. I've invented various tests, psychometric tests, which are used around the world to detect problems that people are suffering with frontal lobe dysfunction and so forth. And so these are practical things now, they're commercially produced. And it's very satisfying if your theoretical science leads to something very practical like that. And I still get a buzz if I go to a clinic or something and I see my test sitting in the corner and things, and I think, well, that was a couple of years, quite a few years, well spent, because it's resulted in something practical that I hope will help people. But all of my colleagues have got stories like that. I'm not unusual in that respect at all. And I think, it's that mix of being a practical scientist. We do a lot of what we do is theoretical. But as I say, the agenda is set by trying to solve real practical medical issues. I spent a lot of time in my early career in clinical settings. I was a nursing assistant, and I was a residential social worker and psychological technician, as they called it then, and worked doing therapy alongside therapy staff in clinical settings rather than in universities. and many years. And I suppose this gave me a perspective. What I didn't understand then, really, when I got the opportunity to sort of move into research, I started doing it in my own time, really. And then the opportunities came along and I started applying for them. I regarded that time, perhaps, I thought maybe I'd wasted a period getting that experience, because you're quite keen to get on the kind of, the ladder, the hierarchy of PhD and then postdoc positions and things like that. In fact, I was quite wrong. Those early years, which didn't seem relevant, in fact turned out to be hugely relevant, because they gave me a level of understanding of the conditions I was looking at that some of my colleagues had yet to acquire. So this meant actually that once you could get to the stage of doing a PhD and so on and so forth, I could accelerate what I was doing, because I had a better understanding of the issues I was trying to solve. So none of it is wasted, and it all turns out to be very useful. And it's funny, a few years down the line, you couldn't tell the difference really between the colleagues who then had to acquire the experience later and me who had acquired it early. But at the time I felt I ended up doing my PhD quite late. I don't think I was 30 until I got my PhD. And I felt like a bit of a failure, perhaps. I left it so late. Some of my friends were getting them much earlier and I felt that they were getting on. I didn't realise that what I was doing then was actually going to turn out to be, it helped me so much. So just stick at it. If you enjoy doing it, do something you really enjoy if you've got a passion for it. And somehow it works out. I don't know quite how, but it does just work out.